For more, let's speak with French socialist Senator Hélène Conway-Mouret, who represents the French abroad. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24.
Hello.
Your thoughts on the tone of Emmanuel Macron and that decision to keep the French ambassador to Niger in place?
Yes, and I think it is the right thing to do. President Bazoum is still being held hostage. He hasn't resigned. And if we were just to follow the ultimatum of the military who have perpetrated the coup d'etat, we would just agree with them being in power today. So it is a sign of support for President Bazoum, who was very well elected last year, who has carried out excellent reforms. And Niger was about the only country in the region still stable from a security point of view. And having now the military in power, instead of doing their job to defend their country and making sure that the populations are safe, are playing politicians. So that is a real problem, and it is sending also a very wrong signal to all the other countries in the region who have democratically elected presidents.
On Sunday, we saw demonstrations outside the French embassy, pressure on the ambassador to leave. What happens if it gets out of hand?
Well, there is a convention, international convention, that diplomatic presence and embassies have to be protected by the local security forces. So the last time, if you remember, there was a massive demonstration. And when France called upon the military to do what is expected of them, the demonstration was dismantled within an hour. So we just hope that it will be the case. You see, we see small groups of people who today are somehow enticed to go and demonstrate in front of the embassy, just to have a scapegoat, and France is the one, unfortunately. So we just have to wait until what the CDAO is going to do, and the French ambassador is just staying there. You see, there is very few diplomats now left in the French embassy, which is creating a lot of problems with the visas and the evacuation of some of the French who haven't left 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, the CEDEAO in French, the ECOWAS group of West African states. In English, they're still pondering whether or not there should be a military intervention. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it is the worst, of course, scenario. It's when all political or diplomatic discussions have failed. And I think it is only right that they continue talking and seeing that, the military somehow listen to what the international institutions, and there is unanimity for that, have said, that they just want President Bazoum to come back and resume his position. Today, I just heard that the salaries of the various administrations have been cut by half. So the population is going to start seeing the impact of the sanctions, and unfortunately, they're probably going to see very rapidly the failure of the military, as all of them now are at the head of the various administrations and ministries, not doing their job to keep the security of within their own country, possibly the security situation, deteriorating very rapidly. So, unfortunately, I think the population is going to see, from a financial point of view, security point of view, that it is not a situation that is to, be good for them in the long term.
Or they'll just blame it on the French.
Well, of course, but the French have nothing to do with the fact that the military in today were presuming to be in power, are doing it for the wrong reasons, for personal reasons. I mean, that was an internal thing that get started, and a general that was put aside by the president, who has the right to do so, who disagreed with it, and then brought his own friends with him, and now we have a military coup. But it's just most unfortunate. I mean, there have been four in the region, and what is going to happen to the other countries? And while it is happening, of course, the security is not being, kept properly. And we see, what is happening today in Mali and Burkina Faso. I mean, the populations are suffering greatly, and this is, a concern to us all.
How to get that message across? You've described to Senator Conway-Mouret the power plays taking place in the high halls of power. How to address that anti-French sentiment among common people?
Well, it's very difficult now, you see, because for a very long time, two countries, namely Russia and China, have used the social networks as a means to inform or disinform, as it is, and have penetrated, the communication ways for the young population, which France hasn't done. When we have, still official declarations, which nobody really pays attention to counter, information that is being given every day of the week. It's very difficult to counter that. So, of course, it is a path that most young people who are sensitive to that have never known. I mean, they've been, they were born after the countries were colonized by France, and with the independence, being regained 40, 50, a few decades ago. So it is just, I suppose, having a scapegoat. And it's always so much easier to blame somebody else, just to forget about one's own failures to actually solve the problems.
And
But
how do you
yeah,
strengthen those ties if the relations between governments are poor? When it comes to things like, I know it's something that you've advocated for, which is visas for students who've been accepted to French universities.
exactly. I mean, these are major problems, and we denounce them, and we try to, solve and resolve that. I mean, we have some young people today who have actually, succeeded in having their baccalaureate, which is the end of secondary schooling for French schools, and we have them in those countries, and a lot of them come to France, of course, but they need visas to come to French universities and have had places reserved to them. And now, because the embassies are closed, and that is also the case, unfortunately, in Mali and Burkina Faso, where there are very small number of diplomats carrying out the various tasks. So it is up to us, unfortunately, members of parliament, to try to move our own ministries here to make exceptions for those people, because these are the future generation. These are maybe one day ministers who were denied the fact to come to France to carry out their further studies, and will go somewhere else, and will probably hold France on the wrong side of their memories, and probably resent France for personal reasons. So it's a accumulation of all of these things that we have to be very careful about, and the non-allocation of visas, the fact that we do a lot of things, and France doesn't actually, for instance, say that we build schools and we help the populations with water and a whole lot of projects that are carried out by France and paid by French money. But this is not known by the population. So there's also a new way of bringing help to those countries that need to be rethought, and it has been. I think we have new objectives now. where the populations will actually see the direct impact of those projects rather than having tens of thousands of euros invested in major projects, and the populations not knowing that all of those are being paid by France.
Senator Hélène Conway-Mouret, many thanks for speaking with us here on France 24.
Thank you to you.